Time to face the root of the evil. For the glory!
Hello and welcome to another bit of content tourism courtesy of Only Single Player. This time we're taking a look at The Wizards, a VR game that wants to give you the opportunity to step into the fantasy headfirst and throw lightning from your fingertips. The Wizards manages this quite well. A simple set of gestures lets you do a few cool things like throwing fiery grenades or conjuring a magical shield. My personal favourite is the ice bow, which demands that you reach back to an imaginary quiver on your back and knock the arrow before firing. Once you've picked these basics up, it's off to a recognisable high fantasy setup, ruined villages, catacombs and the like, to turn your powers loose on the local goblin population. The first thing to mention is that The Wizards really gets the magic casting fantasy down. You can immediately conjure up a fireball and let it fly into an approaching goblin with a satisfying smoky explosion, or roast an entire platoon of baddies with crackling lightning in a way that mostly feels satisfying. I say mostly because The Wizards does sadly suffer from the standard gamut of VR first-person action problems. I've had intermittent issues with gesture recognition, and when this happens it really takes you out of the moment. There's nothing more emasculating than having a fireball in your hand drop at your feet with a damp sizzle whilst a nearby ogre proceeds to kick your teeth in, and I think I've come to the conclusion that it's impossible to throw things in VR with any reliable accuracy. However, most of the time the controls do seem to work, and when everything comes together it really can be a lot of fun. You can deflect projectiles, flit across the arena, ready your bow in a stylish sweeping gesture, and pick off a few nasties all in a few seconds. Then you can ready your next spell, your fists arcing with pure energy, and release a bright purple electric Kamehameha into the approaching hordes. It's in these moments that the game really comes into its own as various green-skinned ne'er-do-wells fall to your multicoloured pyrotechnics and frantic voguing. Your spells even get stronger as you spend upgrade points between stages, eventually unlocking powerful master perks that give your fireballs a trail of damaging sparks or the ability to create explosive landmines on the floor. This is a game that gives you the keys to the toy box early on and just wants you to have fun with what it has to offer. You'll unlock most of the game's spells by the end of the first few stages, and different enemies with coloured immunities will force you to change up your approach, so nothing should remain forgotten for long. This is compounded with encounters that expect you to keep on the move, and this is where the cracks begin to show. Quite quickly, you can find yourself overwhelmed by different hazards, and especially troublesome snipers perched high up. Damaging surfaces, enemies that can summon explosions beneath you, and maddening arcane widgets that hover around eating your fireballs right out the air all await, and it can be difficult to find any real breathing room. It's in these more frantic moments that the game's gesture recognition can begin to falter, and what should be a grand show of arcane force becomes little more than a fistfight with an imaginary kangaroo. It's a shame because thinking on the fly and sending fusillades of technicolor death can be so very satisfying when it works, but in a number of encounters I just can't help but feel that there are too many moving parts on display. Enemies that take shelter high up seem to rest just outside of the Oculus sensor's reach, so bringing them down with a decisive shot from the ice bow can feel like guesswork. This depends on the space you have to play in, and I'd recommend standing as far back from any front sensors as you can when you set up to try and avoid this, but even with a moderate play space I was running into this problem. The Wizards punctuates its combat with light exploration and some simple environmental puzzles that work well enough. Every now and again the way forward isn't entirely clear, but you're not going to get lost for maybe more than a minute at a time. Just poking around in the vibrant fantasy world can be entertaining enough in VR, and a few collectibles can be found to further strengthen your arsenal of spells. It doesn't eat a huge amount of your time. You can expect to clear a stage in around 20 minutes for the most part, but happening across something hidden away can be satisfying enough. All in all, I've genuinely enjoyed my time with the Wizards. It feels great to prepare a salvo of arcane missiles with a deft sweep of my hands and send them careening into a pack of panicking goblins. There are some mechanical rough edges, not every gesture is realised perfectly, but the game is generous and it will take a fair amount of damage to bring you down. All in all, I find farting around with fire and lightning in the Wizards to be an enjoyable experience, even if it can be a little overwhelming at times.